think we're live. Let me see. It says live.
Alright, so we're live. I mean, let me see, right?
Let's see if check your phone.
Yeah, we're live.
Sounds like we are.
Oh, this looks crispy.
We're it looks crispy on the cell phone for sure. All right, so let's get to it. All right, we're here. Can you guys hear us? Mic test, mic test. Felix, say hello.
Hey, what's up?
Can you guys hear Felix? All right, sounds like we're good.
All right.
All right, guys, so today we are going to be talking about parenting, and I asked my pal, Felix, to join me today because he has 9 kids, so he has a lot of experience with children. So
9 kids.
right, 9, 10,
I have 5.
5, all of them intentional. He meant to get every single one.
Well, we'll get into that. That's not right.
So, unfortunately, Felix is a heathen. He does not watch anime. So I'll be introducing him to the characters that I wanted to talk about before, well, as we get into parenthood and fatherhood. So, let's switch it up here.
Let me share with my wife, sorry. Dang.
Yeah, share it.
Share
Share it with your wife.
Share it with everyone, right? Can
Man,
I share it?
yeah.
Okay.
You should be able to.
All right.
Felix didn't come prepared. Hey, man, how's it going?
Dang, you got fans, though.
Just church folk that love me. And my wife.
Fans nonetheless.
Got 2. All right, so I want to share with you a few dads in anime and why they're known to be bad dads. Before we get into that, though, well, you're not in this world, man. So why do I even have you on
Why
here, dude?
do you, bro? Like, this is so weird.
Jeez. All right.
Dragon Ball Z stuff. I don't know what that is.
But have you noticed that in like comics, Superman, Batman, all that stuff, a little bit?
It's not my favorite genre in movies.
But you've seen
yeah,
like
I've seen them. I have kids, and
Yeah. So have you noticed that there aren't a lot of present dads in all of these heroes? They either die or they're not present for some reason, and that's kind of what catapults them into whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's the same way in anime and also in the Bible, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But I wanted to share with you these top 3 guys that are known for just being bad dads. So, how much do you know about Goku? Nothing?
I've heard the
Dragon
name.
Ball, that's about it?
I've heard the name.
All right. So Goku gets a bad rep for being a bad father because this green alien named Piccolo pretty much ends up raising his child. And he gets a bad rep because when he's fighting like the super bad guy, he's just like, Gohan, go fight him. And he actually gives this guy like a senso beam, like a medicine to get him like back to strength. Mm-hmm. So he gets a bad rep for being a bad father because he's never present. He's all about fighting, and like that's kind of like what he's known for. This guy, Attack on Titan, it's a lot to go over, but we're not gonna get into everything. However, this guy, right, in this fictional world, this amazing world, he takes his first son and he enlists him into the army to get like this special power, and he does it all so he could do like this civil revolt thing.
So he's using his kid.
Yeah, he's using his kid. Do you think that's appropriate as a father? Like to use your kid for the betterment of mankind, if you will.
Of mankind.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So like these guys are getting enslaved, right? So it's almost like a Nazi thing going on where like his people are suppressed. So he gets his son into the army as like a double agent, and he basically like puts him into that so he can use him and gain some power. Ultimately, his son ends up hating him and turns on him and like rats him out.
Wait, well, why doesn't he do that? Like, why doesn't he?
Because they're recruiting kids so they can give him like the superpower thing.
I see.
Now, you as a father, would you do that? Like, if it was your child?
I'll choose my kid over mankind. I would. I'm like, because it's like,
but it's for the betterment of the world and possibly your son's world.
Ooh. I'd have to think about it. I'd consider it for sure.
I mean, his son didn't like it because ultimately, so what ends up happening is that one of the dudes that's like training him in the army ends up playing catch with him, and his dad never played catch with him. He just trained him to like do this mission stuff. Mm-hmm. So he ends up like seeing a father figure in this so-called enemy and ends up turning on his dad.
Okay,
so
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Now this guy. Now, he is, like, by far one of the most hated guys in anime history. Why? Have you ever heard of alchemy? Have you ever heard of The Alchemist? Like, the book?
I have, but I know nothing about it. It's just those names sound
All right. So, history, though. In history, like, alchemy was a pursuit of turning... it was a pursuit of trying to make gold out of, like, other materials. Mm-hmm. So they were like chemists, right? This anime takes it to like a whole nother world where like alchemy is a thing. You can, for example, it's called equivalent exchange. You put certain things that are supposed to, like if you're going to build a table, you need the nails, you need the wood. You can do like some type of alchemy, and then as long as you have the materials, it'll build the table for you. Anyways, this guy does something with animals and like alchemy. So he's trying to create like a life form that can actually speak through alchemy. He has a bunch of failed attempts. He's been hired by the government. He's under a ton of pressure. And this is like a big reveal, but ultimately he ends up succeeding. And the way that he does it is that he uses his own daughter to fuse her with like an animal.
Oh.
And that's how he's able to get the funding to continue.
I don't know if my ears are prepared for that. Dang, okay.
Oh, look, Rafi has seen it because Andy Song has like gone into that. But this guy is well hated because like she's a young girl. She's like 5 or 6 years old or something like that. And I think we'll stop it there because I think you've been traumatized enough. But I don't know if you knew this, and I think I shared this a little bit with you. Like there aren't any concrete like good father examples that you can point to in the Bible besides God himself. Or can you think of any yourself?
Well, no. What's crazy is I've never even thought about that statement until today. You know what I'm saying? Like I just assumed there was probably in the back of my mind, but when you said that, I couldn't think of anyone except for Jesus, obviously. I mean God, you know.
So for preaching, like one time I had to preach and it was like around Father's Day. And that's why I like, oh snap, like they're really like I was looking, I was searching and like nothing.
That's crazy.
So I ended up preaching on more like principles of what a good father would be. Mm-hmm. And I did end up using David, right? David and Goliath. Mm-hmm. You know Solomon is his son. Mm-hmm. So he writes him a letter, and basically in this letter he tells him, don't make the same mistakes that I did. Make sure that in your life you honor God. And that was like kind of, and this was like before he was dying, so it was like one of his last words. It was just like, make sure you follow God before you die. And like that was it. But outside of that, we get a lot more bad examples than good examples. Like we get Eli. I don't know if you remember him, but his sons are running amok. Same with Samuel. David wasn't his family freaking in war, and they all like, there was like rape and everything, you know. So he wasn't a good father. Lot, he's the one that offers his daughters to the angels. So like not good examples of fatherhood. So here's a question for you as a Christian man. When you've sought out how to be a good father, like obviously this is something that maybe you didn't explore from that perspective, but how have you approached it in the past to help you out with
how to be a good father?
Yeah. Are you a good father? I guess that's the question. Can we call your wife?
Please don't. Well, I guess you already know a little bit about this, about me. That I'm, because you probably heard my wife say this, that I'm somebody who has struggled in the past to seek help, right? So I can't say I've sought a lot of help in that area, but I definitely have. There are definitely some mentors that I've seeked out, but I've always had a hard time asking for help for anything, like Home Depot, directions, like how to be a father, So my examples, right, were my upbringing, what I saw, which was all failed marriages, all my uncles, my dad, all that, failed marriages. So when I came to Christ, all I had was the Word of God. All I had was, my pastor, where I gave my life to Christ, and any men in the church that I saw, like older men that had been married for a few years. I would look up to them as well, and sometimes have conversations and things like that. But
what's like one of the most like outstanding things? Like, what stands out the most when it comes to like fatherhood advice that you've received? That you're like, oh snap, like I've implemented this, or I should implement this.
I'd want to say, I don't know the exact advice. I can't remember like the exact words. But for sure, it's about the time you spend with your kids versus work. It's about not making money your everything, and understanding that your kids, you have them for a limited time. Actually today I was seeing something about it was a video on Instagram, and it was talking about you have your kids for up to 12 years, where they want you, everything is about you, and then at 12 it kind of switches, and everything is about their friends. And with having a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, I've already experienced that with her, and that's totally true. And it just puts things into perspective.
Like, she wants nothing to do with you?
Not much. Not much. Right now she's all about her friends and just hanging out, and not much of me, to be honest. And we're trying, right? Like, she lives with us still, and it's just like, hey, can you come out of your room more? We want your family, your sister, your brothers. We miss you. Like, just be out here. Just your presence,
Yeah.
So I would say it's just a time, man. You don't have a lot of time, especially where you're like your kid's hero.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very short amount of time. Again, when they hit that around 12, that starts shifting, and it can be sad, but at the same time, it's also like
part of life.
It's part of life, and you got to know what's coming. It's like, all right, it's beautiful. They're growing up, and it's like their introduction into young adulthood, right? And they're getting ready for that stage.
So actually, can you share the ages of your children just so people can have some perspective?
Yep. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I have an 8-year-old son. And then I have twins that are 2 years old, a boy and a girl.
17, 12, 8. So about like 4 years apart.
Mm-hmm. And then the twins are a little more.
And then the twins. Yeah. So I have a 4-year-old and then a 2-year-old. So Felix is quite ahead of the game when it comes to parenting. So,
the first thing I'll say, well, not the first thing because I've said a few things, but something important that I'll say is that I don't feel like I have it all together. And I know dads who have less kids than me and less time being a dad that I look up to, and I would say that they got it more together than I do. I feel like we're all kind of running this at our own pace, and it's easier for some people. Some people had, I'm not blaming my parents or anything, for their upbringing, but some people had stronger foundation, maybe growing up, and things, a little easier, because they were brought up correctly in the Lord and a certain way. I was kind of brought up in craziness, just to say the least. But so I would say that the way I was raised greatly affected me, but it's definitely not an excuse. I'm a Christian. I have the Word of God, and I can seek out help. So, yeah.
So you touched on something that I wrestle with a little bit. You run like your own business and everything like that, and me myself, I have like investments and like my regular job, but it's like, and I don't know, maybe you feel this, maybe you don't, but for me, it's like I feel like I'm always running out of time, just like part of my personality, where like I'm always trying to strive for more. Like I should be like, okay, this next level, we should be doing this and investing, and then I also have like that like struggle of like I also want to be there with my family and be able to spend time with my kids, but sometimes it's like if I want to get this done, then I gotta sacrifice the kids, or do I sacrifice the job, the pursuit for the kids? And it's like, you know, building for the future for them. It's just kind of like I don't know, man. It's like I haven't found a balance where like I'm at peace with juggling both. It's like always tension.
You won't. It's the EMS. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's the every man struggle. And I totally just made that up. But no, it really is though. Every man struggles with that. I've had so many conversations with other men, and they all feel the same way. So if you're expecting to get some kind of knowledge on that part with me, I really don't know what to tell you. We all struggle with it, dude. That balance and knowing. I just think what it is that the seasons, right? There's seasons for everything, you know.
So there's a season to sacrifice your kids.
Well, Abraham. I mean, there's a season that, you know, you're gonna work harder, maybe a few more hours. Obviously, you relay this to your family, you prepare them so they understand what's going on. But there's seasons where you take a break and you lay off a little bit and you spend more time with them. And there's seasons where other things happen. So that's the best answer I would have for you based on my experience, my conversations with certain people. Is there's seasons, man, and you just can't stay in one though. Like you can't, if you stay in working hard too long, before you know it, your kids grow up, they resent you. If you stay at home too long, you go broke. You know what I'm saying?
So which one is it?
No, it's there's not one. You just have to pray and ask the Lord to give you discernment and to lead you in what season you're in right now, you know? Like right now, I'm in hustle season. Like, you know, I'm trying to build wealth in my family and security, but it hasn't always been that, and it's okay. I've spent a lot of time at home. Our kids are homeschooled, right? So my kids see me a lot. I can go to their field trips, and so seasons.
So you're in a season of building. Does that mean that you're spending less time with your kids at the moment?
A little bit, but I work from home. Mostly, so they see me a lot, and sometimes I'm right in the middle of the house. I need headphones and everything, so I'm getting interrupted, and so they see me. It may not be as quality time, right? Because I'm on my computer, like, hey, Kissy's here, whatever. But they see that I'm working, right? So
that's a question: is it quantity or is it quality? Because to be honest, I've heard arguments for both where some people say, well, as long as you have that quality time, then that's all that matters. And then they kind of like, they do a straw man, do you know what that is? Where like they paint a false picture where like, oh, if you have the quote unquote quantity, then what, you know, what most people do is that they're with their kids, but they're like on their phone or something. So like they're related to that. And I've heard the argument the other way, like consistency is what matters to the kids, like seeing you often, than only seeing you on special like occasions on games and stuff like that.
I would say I'm leaning more towards the second one.
Consistency,
and the time that you do spend with them, you can't be on your phone, you know, especially, you know, most of the time, right? We know we get phone calls and things like that, but man, they care about your attention. That's what they want, your attention. They want you. Yeah. You can literally, you can walk to the most boring place, most boring park.
It's like, Dad, there's Dad.
And it's just like, Dad, right? Look at me. That's all they care about, your attention. So it's not even about where you take them, or you can take them to Six Flags or wherever, the funnest place you can imagine for a kid. But if you're on your phone or if you're not focused on them, then, you know, it's just gonna be like sort of fun, but not the same thing. So.
And you're kind of in an interesting season of your life because you've kind of seen that transition with your older daughter and maybe your second one a little bit, whereas for me, I only have like people telling me that.
You're Superman,
you know, like they're just, oh, daddy, daddy, daddy. Like to me, it's like I can't fathom not having that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes I think I do take it for granted. Well, like, oh, I'll just put on like a show and they'll be around running around.
I mean, we also,
but then
even I still do that. We're working on that for sure. But so don't feel bad. Like we all do that. But sorry, put the shows. No, but like that's like to me, it's just like it's not tangible. It's sometimes like it's almost like you have to experience. Like somebody can tell you, and I think you can take it at their value, but at the same time, it's like. Sometimes you just have to experience it to be able to like, oh, okay, this is what, like, someone can tell you what it is to have a kid and what you're going to go through, but until you're like there, it's just not going to like click. I mean, I am definitely taking the warnings and I'm trying to spend time with my kids, but I definitely slack at times. But I understand you because, I mean, it's like when your wife is pregnant, right? You try to imagine what your kid's gonna look like, but you really don't know. And you're just waiting, like, man, what are they gonna look like?
To see, and
then when you have to wait till they're actually here.
And then they come out like a potato.
Right, like a little alien. I'd say all newborns look like aliens. I rarely see cute newborns.
Have you seen a cute one? Was one of yours? Was
like
one kid?
Maybe one of them was like really cute, and I would say that's my firstborn. That's Annalyn. But they all still look like little shriveled aliens.
Dang, so you calling them out?
No, I mean, I'm sure I wasn't that cute when I was a kid. I mean, like, it is what it is.
Are you cute now?
Nah, that's my wife.
All right, so I got a couple of videos for us to discuss. Yeah. And this one has to do with dating. I haven't been through this, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how he recommends you approach that. And let me see what I misses here. I remember when I was a kid, my dad had 3 jobs at one point, and I barely saw my dad. But I remember when we played together, he always made sometime for my brother and I to play or do something. Nice. It's important to have those early memories with your kids. The child needs that kind of love to form both parents and quality time. Okay, it's their love language. True. My dad also, I don't know about your dad, but my dad, still today, he's a dishwasher, basically. He works in the kitchen, he washes dishes, and he prepares foods and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't see him until he would come home. And those are like the memories that I have of my dad. Like, he would come home at like 2, 3 in the morning. We would hear him come, or we'd wait up watching TV or whatever. That he'd have like whatever they threw at that party. He had like the cheesecakes, the fries, all of these like foods that are like, what do you call them? Like, it wasn't like fast food because it was like what do you call that? No. Jeez, it was like junk, but it was like good stuff, like all fried stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like we would look forward to him. Yeah, we look forward to him coming home, because then we would do that. And he works at a country club, right? So it was always like fancy stuff. So. Yeah. So that's what I remember my dad. My dad was like always working hard, and I never had like those, like, let's sit down and like, you know, like the 7 Heaven moments. Like, I only saw that on TV. I never had that like with my dad. Although I still till today, like, I respect the crap out of him because I mean, he came from DR, brought us all over, and he just worked like a dog. But I mean, it's a different generation. But yeah, I want to share this video with you, and I'm curious to hear what you think. I'll mute. Actually, I can just do it from here.
Thanks for your question. Really pertinent. Anybody else? Yes, right down here in front.
My 9 children, all of my children who are of age, have they ever dated? No, we didn't do the dating thing. No, never did the dating thing.
And you said you had how many children?
9.
And their ages range from?
23 to 10 weeks.
23 to 10 weeks. Any of them married?
Yeah, no. We have one who got close.
Okay.
We have one young man who came and was interested in a courtship with my daughter, and we kind of walked through that whole process, and came to a place in the evaluation where that wouldn't happen. So.
And can you tell our audience how you would have been involved or were involved in that courtship?
Yeah, from the get-go. Young man who's interested in my daughter, and again, I write about this and what he must be if he wants to marry my daughter. Young man was interested in my daughter, so I'm the gatekeeper. He was obligated to come to me, and I spent a long time with him, just evaluating him from my perspective, knowing what I know of my daughter, and trying to determine whether or not he was the kind of guy that should be allowed to enter into that kind of evaluative relationship with her. So from the get-go, was involved with that process and partnering with that process. And when our children are small, we talk to them about that process. And you know, they understand that it's a partnership. I think it was Alistair Begg who said it best. Alistair Begg said, "It amazes me that parents will look at their children who just a couple of years earlier needed help picking out their socks and just send them off to pick out a mate by themselves." Makes no sense, none whatsoever. So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Now that I wanted to share this with you because even like I don't want to say even for me,
Who'd you talk to?
Even
Who'd you talk to?
Even for me, but like it's very like countercultural, right? You know, obviously, you know, the whole dating thing is heavily promoted, and even my wife and I have had conversations about this. Oh, we're gonna let our kids date. How are we gonna handle it? I mean, we don't know. We'll see. But like, have you had to encounter that as of yet? What do you think about his perspective of quote unquote partnering for dating?
Well, I gotta be careful right now, right? Because I'm currently dealing with some things at home.
Okay, you don't have to get too many specifics.
You know, too much, and I'm still in the thick of it.
Mm.
So even my answer might change from today, you know, to like maybe talk to me in 6 months or next year.
Yeah.
Because I'm currently going through some stuff at home, but I mostly agree with what Vadi was saying. It's a Vadi or Vodi? Vodi. We've always been against dating, especially because of everything my wife and I did when we were young and dumb and did not know Christ. Right? We didn't grow up in the gospel and in church. So we got pregnant at 17. Right? We were in high school, so we dated starting at 16. I mean, I was dating before that, but like me and her got together at 16. So we've been through that. So because of everything we've been through and what we know now about God and the Word of God.
You see, I was fat when I was growing up, so like God kind of saved me a little bit from dating too early. Ain't got too many girlfriends when I was like a teenager.
Good. You didn't miss anything. You're married now. You know, you got your kids. Like you did. That's the right way to do it. But we're totally against dating as you know. A teenager, even like, man, you going to college, we don't think you should be dating. We think you should be focused on school, and you know, and trying different things and traveling. But I'm not saying that everything's going well at home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we're struggling with some things, and I'll have more to say if you invite me next year, maybe. But
no, for sure. But it's just like it's so crazy because like I don't even think. You know, you see so much on TV, you see so much on social media. It's like, that's where we get those ideas from. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that, like, you grew up and you're like, oh, like, I need a boyfriend. Even as a kid, like I still get pissed off when, like, you know, I have, like, my 4-year-old and then there's, like, another girl there and he's, like, playing with her just, you know, innocently, and then somebody will come on and be like, oh, so novio, like, and I'm just like, bro, like, all the time. No me le ponga esa cosa, like, don't put that on my kid,
right.
You know?
Right, and they're joking, but at the end of the day, like, man, words are words, and it's just like, I don't know, I don't play around with that stuff. And I have a friend, actually, if he's watching, I'm talking about you. But every time our kids are together, he's like, oh, so, you know, they get mad. How old is your kid? Oh, yeah, they can get married, you know.
Yeah,
like,
get them together one day.
But yeah, no, it's so difficult, man. They're surrounded by friends that are dating, right? Everyone in school, high school, and everyone they see on social media, every Disney movie they see. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. We go back, like...
It's all about the relationships and all this thing.
We try to show our kids, like, older shows because we feel like they're a little more wholesome and a little more innocent. But man, no, they weren't, man. Like we like, crazy. Like, you know, those Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
And
even
like,
then, yeah, that's all about dating. Topanga and Corey, yeah.
You know, just any show that you can remember from back then, they would, even if they didn't start with it, they'd throw it in there. You know, they you know, and then before you know it, the next season is all about the dating. And so it's hard, man. It's hard to tell your kids not to date and expect them to stick by that. You know, you hope they do, right? But it's hard. They're surrounded by pressure
and like, what's the purpose really of dating? Like, you know, I mentor different guys in our church, you know, and specifically one, he's a teenager, won't necessarily say an age, but, you know, he's like, oh, I want a girlfriend and all this stuff, and ask him, well, why do you want a girlfriend? He's like, well, I'm lonely. And he basically just wants a girlfriend so he can not feel lonely. You know what I mean? And like, that's not a recipe for a good courtship or for you to be heading somewhere fruitful. You know what I mean?
He's trying to fill that God hole with the girl. Like that's what he's doing, really. Like he needs to find that fulfillment in the Lord, and he's looking for it in a girl. It's only gonna lead to some things that you shouldn't be doing, to be honest. Like, so.
And Vody, in the earlier part of the video, he talks about like his son, you know, there was a girl that liked him and all this stuff, and he's like, oh, what should I do? And he tells him to stay away from her. Like, if you really like her, stay away from her, because you're only looking to use her at this point. He's like a kid. Like, your only purpose to be her boyfriend or to go out with her is because you want to use her for your own self-gratification. Like, if you think of dating like that, dude, it's like so distasteful. It's crazy. You know, like, and I mean, I dated, you know, women in my past, and it was really just using that person so that I could feel better, so that I could feel companionship. It wasn't like my train of thought, even like at the beginning, it wasn't like, oh, I want to be this husband that, you know, I want to build myself to be the husband that God has for this woman. Like, that was not the case at all, you know.
Don't ask me what my purpose is.
we don't want anybody to be learning from you. No. Mirari's asking here, in your opinion, what's the appropriate age to start dating?
So I would say there's not an appropriate age. What it is you have to measure each child based on their maturity and how their relationship with God is, and where you see them, because not all kids are gonna grow up in the same way. You know, some kids may mature quicker. There may be some kids that are ready to marry young, like that God calls them, like, to get married young, like, you know, 20 years old, 19, whatever, like, but that's not everybody. So I really don't have a number for that at all. But I would say definitely not like in the teens.
Not in the teens.
I don't think you should be dating in the teens. Like, dude, the hormones levels at those
are crazy.
Are insane, dude. Insane. So why would you even play with fire like that? You know, it's like, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna play with fire. So, yeah.
But women and men kind of like have completely different paths for marriage. Like, if I'm thinking about like marriage for a boy, like for my son, it's like you have to be on your way to being able to be a provider for your home or for this person that you want to see. Like, if you're not even close, if you don't even have a job, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to get married in the next couple of years because you can't even afford to go anywhere, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, because I know a few guys who are, you know, thinking about marriage and all that, and they don't have their stuff together at all. And, you know, sometimes I talk about it with my wife, and it's just like, wow, like, I shouldn't, sometimes, like, it'll come out just like as a fellowship kind of conversation, like, you know, oh, you know, what do you think about this girl? But then my wife, like, she'll hear it and she'll talk to me after. She's like, are you crazy? Like, why are you talking about getting married or with girls with this person? They don't even have a job. They don't even have this. And it's like, it's so true. Like, I thank God that at least, you know, I had my apartment, I had a job and all that stuff before my wife and I got married, you know, and I was shown to be somewhat responsible. But, man, especially nowadays, I feel like people don't want to work, dude. It's lazy. It's lazy.
I would say like you have to be on your way. Like Vody and his wife, they got married in college. So he worked a job. He was in school and made it all work. They moved into an apartment and everything after they got married. So like you don't have to have like everything together, but I think you got to be at least on your way. You know what I mean?
You have to be, because you can technically literally get pregnant right away. And then what? Like you have a whole family now.
Yeah.
Like you have to know how to support that family. So.
But I'll ask the chat, because that's so for the man side, like I kind of have a pretty good idea of how that would look like. But for the women's side, it's so different, because like women are not necessarily called to be like providers of the home. So like I don't know if there's like a specific like target that you can pinpoint, like, oh, you have to be on your way to be doing this, and then you can marry. Like, do you have any thoughts? I mean, you have some girls, but
on the women,
yeah, like what are some things that would say like, okay, you're ready, or you could be ready? And I'll ask we have some women in the chat too, so if you want to chime in, please do.
I just think they have to have a strong relationship with the Lord, and so do the men for sure. But women, they have to be confident in who they are already before they even go out, because they're gonna try to find what they're missing in a dude, right? If they don't have that relationship with the Lord. So I think that's one of the main kind of foundational things they need. It's just a true relationship with the Lord, where they're not missing, like they're not desperate for something.
Do they need to know how to cook?
I would say they don't. I don't think they need to know how to cook, but I think it's a good thing for them to learn, for sure.
All right, let me.
Ladies,
let's see if the ladies say something. But in the meantime, I want to share this video. I'm not lying to you. The first time I saw this video, I cried.
If one day we ever have a change of heart that you don't love my daughter anymore, please don't hurt her. Just bring her back to me. Give it back to me. Okay. It's not gonna happen. Yeah. Okay. Okay. My precious daughter is yours. Thank you, Dad.
So what I was saying was that this hits hard, because you almost realize that it's your home. We call them our kids, but they really aren't. At the end of the day, they eventually will go out and make their own lives. So we're pretty much just like a holding place for a bit. And I don't know, like, does that ever cross your mind when you're like parenting?
Not that often, but when I'm having a conversation and just like looking at everything from outside, yeah, I remember like, wow, wait a minute, like they're gonna go out there and make their own family, right? And it's not your family, it's their family, and that's
Do you feel like you're used? Like you just got used for like 20 years? It's just like
No, it was a blessing for me. Like it's a blessing. Like it's such a joy. Like I love kids. Like when people hate on big families, they're like, when they see me and my wife with our 5 kids, they're like, oh, ya pararon, ya no más. Like, yeah, in reality, I don't want any more kids, but that's not on you to say. Like, what if I want more kids? I like big families, right? So
you could have one more. No, you good?
No way. But yeah, I understand that they're borrowed. I understand that I'm just here to love on them, and I just pray that they have much less scars than I did growing up, and that they love the Lord. And I know they're not gonna be perfect, right? Because I'm not a perfect parent, so I've made mistakes, and I'm gonna continue to make mistakes, but I'm gonna do my best, and always gonna be here for them, like that guy, like that, like,
bro. Like, you know, like when the daughter is getting married, and actually preached on this once, is like the father is really like handing over, like, look, I've taken care of her up until this point. Now this is your responsibility. Like, I just love the fact that it wasn't like just a ceremonial thing. Like, this dude is like actually telling him, like, bro, like, I'm giving you my daughter, like, take care of her. Like, I don't know, it's, I think, have a biblical understanding of what submission means. I think as a woman, we are naturally more cautious everything, and trusting God first, and then trusting the man you have chosen to marry. Oh, she's saying that puppy cried at my brother's wedding and not mine. I'm gonna have to talk to him about this. Nah, man, that's tough. I mean, I was gonna show you this video, but I think I can summarize it to get your thoughts on this. I think so. This guy is Jordan Peterson. You heard of him?
Of course.
Yeah. So he brought this into perspective for me, because he's talking about 4-year-olds. He's saying, like, your job up until they are 4 years old is to make sure that they're likable, that your kid is a likable child, so that when they're around adults, so that when they're around kids, they actually want to socialize with them, and they're not like a menace, and people like trying to get away from him and stuff, or her. Because he was saying, bring it all together, that ultimately what you don't want is sending off your kid that's not well adjusted into a world that is going to hate him for who he is or who she is.
Right.
Have you ever like thought about that? Like, oh, I gotta get my kid. Like, I mean, we do it like naturally. Like, yo, bro, like, don't scream, don't do this, don't do that.
Like, look at them in the eye when you're shaking their hand. Like,
How do you guide your kids? I guess is a better question. How do you guide them to get them to be a little bit more sociable?
Yeah. So
be able to put them out there.
We're currently dealing with this with my 8-year-old son. He's amazing, but he can be a little weird, a little awkward around people sometimes, especially like adults. And
be a little weird.
Like, I don't know, like, he's an awesome kid, but sometimes he can seem rude. He can come off as rude to adults. No one's ever complained about it, but we see the interaction, right? So, like, I'll tell him to go open the door for someone who's knocking. He'll open the door and walk away. And I'm like, Liam, say hi. Like, you know this person. Like, but I don't know. We just talk about it every time we see it. We try to talk about it in the moment or afterwards. And we have to exemplify. That's the biggest thing, right? They do what you do, not what you tell them, not what you say. I think I said it right. But so you have to show them. And I don't know. We're seeing if it's gonna work with Liam, right? Because, like I said, it's not anything diagnosed or anything like that. But it's definitely something where we're just working on it and showing him, this is what it is to be a man, and to be proper, and to be to have just to be a good human being. Like, you want to look at people in the eye when you say hi, and you want to, and if they say they give you a compliment, like, say thank you. Like, that's another big thing. Like, he has really soft, like, 90s surfer boy hair, and he gets compliments all the time, and he mostly just doesn't respond. Like, he's just, I'm like, no, you say thank you.
It's like, I know.
Right. No, he didn't say that. Like, at least that would be something, but no. So it's something we're working on now, and I don't really have any.
I've seen like videos and stuff about like, oh, like, you gotta be mindful because you don't want to like stifle their personality or like change them up. Like, do you believe in any of that stuff? It's just like, no, like, I gotta
we got the word of God, the character, we got Jesus, right? And the fruits of the spirit. Like, no, don't come at me with any of that stuff. Does he look like Jesus yet? No? Okay, so we still got some work to do.
Do you use the Bible a lot when you're correcting your kids? To be honest, for me, like, even with my 4-year-old, I'm still just like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. I'm trying to get better at like linking it to scripture, but
so we definitely do not enough. We should do it more, but You know, because we have Bible studies at home, we have family altars, and where we have studies with our kids.
What is family altar?
Family altar for us is it used to be on Tuesdays, but now we're doing the marriage classes on Tuesday. But we get together at around 8 o'clock, 8:30. We do a little worship, right, with the guitar. We sing, and then we get into the Word. And either myself or my wife will bring some kind of teaching to the kids, and we'll have conversations.
All of them?
Yeah, all of them.
All 5?
Not the twins. Sorry, they're sleeping at that time. Thank God.
Oh, okay. So this is like later on in the night.
Yes, this is at 8 or 8:30, and the baby's already sleeping. So we have that. That's what we call family altar, and so we can refer to that when we're trying to make corrections. Like, hey, remember we talked about the fruits of the Spirit, right? Patience, or this or that, you know, and so we'll use that. Not every time. I'm not gonna lie and say every time we remember it can make that connection.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just like, you can't do that.
Hey,
right.
Stop it.
Yeah. Got a lot of people right. I don't know.
Let's see what we got here. Merari said a red flag for me was if someone I was getting to know did not make time to see God or suggest for both of us to seek God together.
It's a red flag.
That is a red flag. My wife was the first woman that I prayed with. Yeah.
You knew that you were gonna marry.
Yeah, I knew it. How do you guide / encourage your kids to still enjoy going to church as they get older? Yo. Claudia's gonna talk to you about that.
I'm exposing our secrets.
How do you get them to enjoy?
All right. Most of my kids want to go to church at this age, right?
Yeah, my kid wants to go to church. Yeah.
If we ever have a day where we can't go, they're really upset about it. So we don't have to do much of that with them. The oldest one, she hasn't said it, but you can tell she's not as excited as she used to be, right? But we're praying that the seeds that we planted throughout her upbringing will prevail, and she eventually will fall back in love with the things of the Lord, and we see that enthusiasm in her again.
It's definitely like I grew up, unlike you. You have your super heathen past, and I grew up in church. Although I still had to have my coming to Jesus moment. I remember even after I knew God. There was a time where I enjoyed the worship. That was the part that I enjoyed the most, right? And then I'm starting to the preaching, and then I got a whole bunch. I got a lot into theology, and then I got this ego with a couple of my buddies. Where yo, this preacher he's not really getting deep. So we would go to another part of the church downstairs and have our own. Yo, that's mad disrespectful, bro. Crazy. Not disrespectful. In church, we would go downstairs and chop it up.
Your pastor never said that either?
Well, some people eventually called us out on it, and even then we just and then eventually got convicted. And it's this dude probably prepped a word that came from God. You should sit there and even if you've heard it before, you should sit through and see what God because sometimes it's almost you're almost so egotistical. It's if this is not for me, then it's not worth listening. But it could be for somebody else too.
I've
you
totally
could.
Been there. I'm not gonna lie. We've been there. Me and my wife and everyone. I feel all Christians have had those moments. Maybe not where we separate and go downstairs and have our own study, but definitely you're there and you're I heard this. I know this one. He probably just,
dude.
Put this together in 5 minutes before whatever. But God, I've learned. It's terrible, right? But God will speak to you, man, in those random. That was one service where you didn't want to come to because it's Hermana Pedrita, whatever her name is. I don't know, Arsenia, I don't know. And she, that every time she goes up there, she talks about the same time when she got healed from this 30 years ago.
The same sermon every time. Yeah.
God will use that sermon, man, and you just
for somebody too.
For somebody, I know. Even I just feel I'm always God has something for me every time. That's the kind of person I am. That's what I believe. That if I'm open, my heart is open.
I need to be like that.
That God has something for me. I gotta get something every time. If not, you're just wasting. You're just warming up the seat.
Even sometimes, because I study like sermons and how to structure sermons and all this stuff. So like I could be, and like sometimes I gotta ask for forgiveness because I'm like I am judging the way that this person has structured their sermon. You know what I mean? Like I'm like that really shouldn't go there. Technically, you should be doing this, doing that, and then ultimately, bro, like some of the sermons that I've critiqued the most, like from my seat, are the ones that you're seeing like. That God has really used to like convict people. You know what I mean? And like those moments, like I love them because like it humbles me. It's like, bro, like they had to whine now, you know? Like
I'm not gonna lie, I'm that, but for worship, right? So I'm a worshiper.
So you and I should get together, go to a service together. You'll critique. You'll be there critiquing the worship, and I'll be there critiquing the preaching.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's hard. It's hard, man. When I go to a church that has subpar. Not worship, because worship, right? We know what worship is, but some part maybe the sound system isn't good, maybe the singers aren't that experienced, and then like I've had to train myself to like, yo, shut up, like worship. You bring what you came to bring to the Lord, and join them in worship, and because it's just why would I sit here and critique other people, you know, just because they don't sound as professional as that other church I went to, or. You know, so I've definitely been there, bro. Trust me. Being a Christian is a growing experience forever, dude. We're always growing and changing. And if you're not, then something's wrong with you.
And the problem with like learning new things and all this stuff is that you gotta keep yourself humble. That's what I've had to learn, bro. Cause like even like prayers, man. Like sometimes like the simplest prayers, you're just like, dude, like. It's just because it comes from like the humble heart, you know. Hay gente que se ponen ahí tan elocuente. They have all this stuff going on, all these fancy words, and you're just like,
my wife will tell you I don't like praying after her because she prays really well. Like her prayers are like loud, and the words she uses and she's
loud.
They call her intercessor. You know, she's an intercessor, and you know, I don't know. It's just like so when I go to pray, I'm really simple with it, right? And I take my time with it.
Thanks for the grub.
Father God, Father God, Father God. He doesn't know, right? But I don't know. I got lost, but anyways, that was funny.
Prayer. Anyways, that was funny. I wanted to share this book. I want to give some publicity to this book. You should get this book. This is really cool. Outside of the actual reading, check this out. It has a like guide based on behaviors. I don't know if you guys can. You probably can't see that. Look it up. But like, if you're looking to talk to your kid about fear, it'll point you to verses in the Bible about fear, foolishness, forgetfulness, like everything, dude. Gossip, grief, like it's amazing. Impatience, like if your kid is too impatient, if he interrupts, and I want to show you this last video about interrupting, but loneliness, like all of these verses, man, that like, you know, you may like be struggling with your kid on something. You can talk to them and maybe go to the side, like look at the book, all these references, and then like come back and be like, hey, like you really shouldn't be doing this because God doesn't like this, because this and that. To be honest, my kid is 4. I'm starting to think that I can start using this with him, but we haven't really like put it much into practice. But it's pretty cool. I mean, even the book itself is awesome, but this is like legit.
Where were you 17 years ago?
Dude, I don't know, but when did this come out? I don't know if it says. But it's called Teach Them Diligently. This was recommended by Paul Washer. You like Paul? Paul Washer? Yeah, He's a little Paul like, Washer, you know,
he makes me
hell and brimstone, you know? But yeah, dude, like once he recommended, I gotta get this book, and it's because even for you, like if you want to look up like stuff on, I don't know, whatever, selfishness, you know, you being selfish with your wife, you know, look up some verses.
Of course you would choose that.
So before we close, I got one more video.
Okay.
And I think we've all dealt with this, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
What's the name of the book? Oh, you already said it. Okay.
Yes, Teach Them Diligently.
Snapshot.
Now, it may have a different cover. I think there's one with like a blue cover, but the dude's name is Lou Prelo. I don't know if you can see that, but pretty good stuff. All right, so check this out. This is the last one right here.
a kid runs up with a problem. Mommy, mommy, mommy. Do you stop, allow the interruption, turn, and answer the kid and offer the way? Is that the answer? Or is it, no, I'm speaking to your father. Wait. And then you speak maybe a little bit longer now to make them wait. One is a clue that you're idolatrizing your kids at the expense of your marital relationship. Setting a bad precedent, teaching this kid that they're the center of the world and you're going to ruin them for it. And the second one is saying, no, your father is speaking. You don't get to interrupt your father. You should be listening to your father. This is one that teaches a kid humility, good manners, and patience and restraint. That's just one tiny show of that.
What do you think of this guy's response to interruptions?
I think it depends where your kid is. Like, if you're trying to teach your kid how to say excuse me, how to have those manners, then yes, you stop whatever conversation you're having and look at him and say and acknowledge that he said excuse me, right? Say, hey, good job by saying excuse me. What can I help you with? Obviously, as they get a little older, a little more, and they got that point already, then you can go to what he's saying, right? Where it's like, all right, I know you said excuse me, but I'm talking to your father, right? Or whoever you're talking to. I'm talking to another adult. You have to wait. At that point, now you're teaching them patience and respect. So I just think it depends where your child is at.
Do you think it's like that big of a deal if you're stopping the conversation to talk to your kid? Like, is that gonna like teach him like the center of the world? Like I saw some people.
Like I said, I just think it depends.
You think it's like that?
I don't think it's. I don't think
is
it's
that serious?
I don't think it's that deep, that serious, but it can be. I'm not. I don't know all the answers, but I just believe that it depends on what you're trying to teach him. You might want to teach him that, you know, for a certain period in their life, right? But if I'm trying to teach my kid how not to be rude and just interrupt and say excuse me, I'm gonna acknowledge every time he says excuse me and be like, hey, you said excuse me, what's up, buddy? After he learns that,
yeah, fair point.
Then we move on to like, okay, you know how to be polite. Now learn respect. You know, you said excuse me, but I'm not ready to talk to you. I'm still talking to this person. Now you have to wait. So
yeah, there was a few different people that were like, if you treat them like a side character, they'll feel like a side character.
Oh gosh.
What do you think?
Oh gosh. that's just ridiculous. But
it's too much. Too much on the nose.
It's too much. It's just too much.
Although, do you find that you struggle with this more than your wife? Because I'll say I think that my wife probably may struggle a little bit more with this than I do. Because he was clearly referencing like women. Because he was like, no, I'm talking to your father. I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to cause any trouble.
No, I would say no. I think it's the same thing. You know, I don't know. I think my wife would agree with me when it's not that serious. It's not. And it depends who your kid is. Maybe your kid struggles with respect and authority, and maybe for them you want to be a little more firm with that stuff. But again, that's why it's fluid, dude. That's the word of the year. Like, it's fluid.
It's fluid.
It's like your child may be here in this wave, and another one may be down here. So,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all in different stages. Once they learn,
it depends on what they're struggling. That's a fair point. Like, it depends on what they're struggling with. I mean, I know it's a clip. Maybe he could have gone a little bit more into like, okay, what are you trying to teach them? Manny, do you think if you had a daughter, you would discipline her differently? Or Felix, is your discipline the same for all your kids, just at a different level? That's a good question, man. I think it would definitely be different. I mean, genders are different, right? I think in general, you got to take more into account the emotions of your daughter more than your sons. But I haven't had direct experience, but I definitely feel like I would treat them differently and I would discipline differently. They may think like it's not fair. I mean, definitely growing up, it's me, my brother, my sister, and she definitely got treated differently than we did.
Yeah.
For good or for bad.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's different. You're raising, one of them is going to be a leader of a home, literally a pastor of a home, and have their own family. So and one of them, you want them to marry and find someone like you, right? So you have to treat them and keep that in mind in the way you treat them and discipline and all that stuff. You don't want to be this crazy, angry person all the time. So
what's one example where you would handle something differently if it was a daughter or a son?
Good question. Let me see.
Like, let's say that playing with their food, would you treat both the same?
Food, yeah.
Hey, stop playing with your food. Like,
yeah,
it's just
yeah. It would. It has to be something bigger than that, where I feel like the response would be different, and their ages have to be similar, right? Because like right now, my older daughters will say that Liam, my son, I treat him. I'm unfair in the way I treat him versus them. Like I cater to him, or I'm softer with him, and I got to be harder on him like I am on them. But they're older too,
right?
Like way older.
Expectations are higher.
So the age matters as well, because there's I'm starting to transition into getting a little more firm and tougher with Liam. He's 8 now, right?
Yeah.
And he's starting to develop these bad habits as being messy and irresponsible and stuff like that. So I'm really kind of honing in on that right now, me and my wife, and so because we're trying to raise a man, right? So,
yeah.
So things are starting to shift with him. Like I'm a lot more serious. I'm not as easily forgiving. I forgive, but what I mean is I'm not as easy.
You holding a grudge, bro?
No, but so yeah, he's in the transition where like I'm starting to get a little tough on him, and maybe I waited too long, to be honest, because he's developed some really bad patterns of just like messy boy stuff like that I had as a kid too.
Yeah,
it was like, man, I should have cut that off way earlier. So
when do you know it's like? And this is something that I also, like, I don't know, like, when is it just like a kid being a kid, or something that you actually need to address? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes, like, kids are going to play, they're going to rough around. Like, do I need to correct every single time? You know what I mean? Like, that's always like so a weird big, balance, man.
That's so big, man. I'll tell you that, man. My wife and I have learned, and we're still learning, right? But our poor oldest daughter, man, we were so, like... on top of her.
Well, from
right?
Your background, the things that you went through, I think.
Right.
And you also had her young.
Yes, had her really young. So we really, man, like she couldn't even play with dirt. Like she couldn't walk more than 10 feet without, and we had that she had that upbringing with us, where now we've learned with our kids, we're a lot more relaxed. They have their moments where they're going to be kids. We're not going to yell at them for doing kid things all the time, right? So but that was tough, because we were brought up with like that, where I don't know if it's a Hispanic thing, but like, no toque eso, no, like, bro, like they're just being a kid, like so we have to talk to the grandma, right? She's a big part of their lives, right? Where we're teaching her as well. Hey, this is normal. Kids are gonna run around.
She's not soft on them. Cause my parents and my wife's parents are just soft, dude. They're like goo. Like these kids could get away with murder.
Right. No, and they can. Like she loves them and they love her, but like. She still has her like she snaps at them like an old Dominican grandma about weird things, like my son going out to our backyard to play in the dirt, like that would set her off, like and it's just like I love her, she's amazing, but like she still has those like old Dominican things. It's like, no, like he's a kid, he can go get dirty, he has more clothes, he can take a shower. So sorry, what was the question? What was the question?
The question was, when do you know like it's a thing that you have to discipline versus like a kid being a kid?
I don't think there's a line.
Is there something that you use to like figure that out?
So
I mean, I know obviously probably talking to your wife, it's like, hey, is this something that, because you guys both can be crazy at the same time, I mean, you could, but it's like using that. I feel like if I see something and I'm like, yo, we're gonna do something about this, or he's just, sometimes if I'm getting a different feedback than what I'm thinking, then I'll reconsider, like, okay, maybe I'll just let him be, or maybe I'll correct it.
Right, a lot of times in a moment, like, we have to be each other's kind of, I don't know what you call it.
Bouncing board? Or?
Yeah, kind of like, if I see my wife flipping out or something, and it's not that serious in my opinion, I have to kind of like, give her a little tap, like, because we also are trying to do a lot of repairing right now. We used to, we don't want to yell as much, so we don't want to scar them. And so she'll tap me in the shoulder if I'm getting angry, and she's like, whoa, like, we need Felix to calm down a little bit. She'll give me a little nudge, or she'll, And what's funny is that it'll upset me even more at the moment, even though I know she's trying to help me, and I know she's watching this like, but I know she's trying to help me, and she doesn't want me to damage our kids. She doesn't want them, to grow up with more scars, right?
Yeah.
So you have to work together as well, and then separately have meetings about the things that you are going to correct. Like what's really important, You have to have certain things that are like, all right, we really have to touch on these things when we see them do this, this, and this.
I almost feel like you're running a company sometimes. Like you're like you're going out to dinner, or like at nighttime you're like, so I've noticed this on so and so. What do you think? Should we change it?
No, it is a company. Oh my god, that's the best comparison I've heard. Yo, we'll go out to like our dates, right? Like let's say we'll go to I don't know, cafe or something on a Monday. That's when sometimes we have our dates. And we'll go and sit down, and all we talk about is our family, our kids,
where do we want to go,
behaviors, finances.
Yeah,
it is a business, dude.
Do you put a write-off on there?
Yeah, I
at
should.
The company, take some notes. You can put it on there.
Yeah. I think my wife said something.
You discipline differently because they are different and will carry out different roles. Also, asking God to lead you with their personality and call. For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Like one of my kids, my 12-year-old daughter, you can't talk to her the way you can talk to my son or the oldest daughter. Like we can talk rough to the like, and get a little loud. But if I do that, which I do, because again I mess up. When I get like that with my 12-year-old Avery, you can see her shut down. Like she just like her face changes. It's like you crush her. Like I crush her. She can't. That's not how she likes being talked to, right? Like you can't really get aggressive and like loud. Like hey, don't
Yeah, sure.
She doesn't like being embarrassed. Like you can't talk. You can't correct her in front of people. Like so yeah, she's right. Like,
Yeah.
all the kids have different personalities, and you have to know. Again, fluid.
How to maneuver each one and treat them well. They're all, like Claudia said, they're all different. Have you ever read the 5 love languages?
A long time ago. I don't know if we finished it, but
there's one for kids too.
I heard, yes.
And that one's good because it kind of puts it into like it's the same stuff, but it's like the examples kind of help you key in on like some of the stuff. Like for me, I know that my son Lucas, the little one of his primary languages is physical touch. So like I know like when it comes to discipline, I gotta be mindful that I'm not always like doing like a little spank in the bottom or something, because he's gonna see that as I'm taking away that love language. But also when he needs to be comforted, I know that okay, let me give him a hug. Now Xander, on the other hand, from what I've seen from him, is that he likes quality time. Like he wants, which is actually one of the toughest one for most parents to give, and I'll put myself in there because like you have to like put everything else aside. Like he needs quality time. Like he wants you to sit with him and watch what he's watching or play with him. So, but also it translates into like the punishment. Like secluding him away from us could do more harm than good as a punishment. I found it pretty interesting. Maybe you may want to check that one out. But
it's tough, man. This parenting stuff is not easy, but I'm glad you're having this. Having me here and these conversations, because you have 2 kids now, right?
Yes, sir.
But I'm in this 17 years deep, and I still feel like, man, I'm so far from getting this. I wish I would have had these conversations a long time ago. And I saw something recently online that said your oldest daughter, I think, what is it? She's like being raised with you or something like that. And your youngest daughter, you're raising them. Or your youngest child, you're raising them. And I can definitely say I feel like that was our experience with our oldest daughter. Like she was being raised alongside us, as we're still
learning.
Yeah. And obviously as a result.
I think I've seen that clip.
Right?
Yeah.
You've seen something like that.
Because when you have them when you have them younger, like you're almost like you're also growing, and as you get older, then obviously you're coming more into your own. So now the other kids,
But if you've been through it,
it
hits a spot in your heart, right? It's hard. Because what that really is saying is that your oldest is gonna be different, and it's gonna have certain damaged parts that maybe your other kids are not gonna have. and that's always tough
to swallow. Like, damn, like,
whoa. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't even expect to get emotional, but it's hard to know that your oldest. There's some things that, because of the route that we chose, you know, to do things, you know, out of order, how we see it, where, you know, we got pregnant in high school, and she saw some things she wasn't supposed to see, right? Especially, we didn't know Christ for a few years while she was, a child, and thank God we found Christ, and you know, she grew up in that afterwards. But there was a lot of stuff that happened before, and a lot of stuff even after being Christian, that she see, you know, that probably damaged her and created some scars. But I'm also that person who, I'm not trying to be a perfect parent. I understand I'm not going to be. And like, I tell my wife, because she's much harder on this, like on herself about this than I am. It's like, dude, we all have certain things we're going to, you know, grow up with, whatever damage, whatever scars that is. And that's what's going to help, you know, that's going to be part of your character. You're going to be a certain way because of that. And you're going to be able to help certain people and hopefully not do the same thing to your children. So, like, I don't like to dwell on that too much, on the past, right? On, like, what we can't change. Like, what can we change now?
Today,
today. But my wife is always reminding me, well, we can't change the today if we don't think about what happened, right? Because you repeat the same mistakes, so...
Yeah. Well, that's like we've talked about. I think it's all a balance, right? Because you can't just focus on the past, because then you're never moving forward, right? And at the same time, you want to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that you've made in the past. But I think, I mean, man, like, I don't know, to be honest, how people do this whole life thing without God, bro. Like, that's like the craziest thing to me, because, like, I know, like, in my marriage, it's like, dude, we know that we have to answer to somebody, you know, and even with our kids, it's like, ultimately, like, it's in his hands and it's his control. Even the mistakes that we've made in the past or with our children, like, God tells us that it's going to be for our better good, ultimately, you know. And I think that even as a parent, man, you got to trust God, because at the end of the day, it's like, you can do everything right. And I've seen it, dude. Like, I've seen parents, devout, Bible studies, everything. They did everything that could, like, that you could possibly do within their means. And the kids just, like, you know, they're derailed at this time, but God willing, you never know. Maybe at some point they'll come back. You know, and you got to hope that at the end of the day, your kids see the intention behind your actions, you know, even if it's like, at the end of the day, you tried your best. Even with my father, like, people will look at my dad and they'll be like, yo, but this dude just worked. But for me, at 25, 30, I'm like, that's all he knew, you know? So it's kind of like, I look at what he could do and what he knew how to do and what he thought he should be doing. And I focus on that versus the stuff that I wish I had, you know? And we can only hope the same, that our kids grow up with God. Hopefully they'll find him, and then they'll look at us with the same mercy that Jesus looks at us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Like, right now, our kids, their relationship with God is kind of through us, attached to us, right? Because we're showing them the way, right? But there comes an age where that kind of flips, and we kind of detach from that, and they have to find their relationship, their purpose, their encounter with God. And I think that's where my oldest daughter is right now, where, you know, I believe we're praying that she, you know, and again, we're not saying, okay, she's like crazy or anything, but we definitely have seen the shift. You know, the late teenage year shift that we hear, that we dreaded so much. It was like not going to happen with our kid. And it's happening with our kid, you know. But we know she loves God, you know. Doesn't seem like it sometimes, but we know that she does. And we know that the seeds were planted, and, you know, so many endless conversations with her, and just loving on her. Right now, we're just on a stage of, like, loving on her, because that's what she needs. Like, she needs to not feel rejected by us, right? As she finds her way through this weird age, right? So that we're not pushing her away from the Lord more, right? We don't want her to be like, ooh, that's what God is like? Nah, I don't want, you know? And we do that sometimes as parents. Like we
don't drive your kids into anger. You know?
Right, exactly. So.
Well, Felix, it's been about an hour and some change. Any last words before we end this wonderful live? Thank you for joining me, by the way.
Yeah, no.
I did not think you were gonna show up, but you
what,
dude?
Well, like I said, you don't know me that well then. But no, I mean, I guess we're friends now, bro. I mean, you got me to skip a Celtics game, so.
Oh, watch out!
You got me to, yeah. That's really. You could ask my
Dang,
wife.
I don't know, man. Like, you're not into anime. I'm not into sports like that.
It's all right. It's okay. Me and my best friend from 6th grade, we're still best friends. We're opposites, like completely. So, and we're still friends. So.
I mean, I'll go to a Celtics game though. Have you been to a few? It's good stuff.
Okay. I thought.
Thanks for the honesty in your conversations. God bless you both. Appreciate it. I think that's a good note to end on.
Amen.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. And as always, just want to remind you that we must persevere. Peace.